Alrighty, so here we go. It is Friday, which means it's time to do the preview of Match Week, as we're now into Match Week number 11 of the 2023 MLS season. And this week, it feels like we are back to where we were a couple of weeks ago, where pretty much 13 of the 14 games that's going to be happening in Saturday night, and we do have the one Sunday game that's going to be kicking off at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, and it will be on the Big Fox. But we start off with the first 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific game, which will be part of 7 of them that's going to be happening around that time, is Charlotte FC versus NYCFC. So for Charlotte, obviously they are at a point of the season where it's kind of almost like it's a must win, knowing the fact that they have underachieved a lot this season with a 2-3-5 record, and they're facing against an NYCFC team that is still trying to figure out how they can actually perform just as well on the road as they have at home. I mean, this team has been one of the most bipolar team in terms of their home and road record. In terms of their home record, it's been great, and they've been playing wonderful soccer. But when it comes on the road, it has looked like a complete different team. All-time meeting. Charlotte, of course, has the all-time meeting 2-0 and 0 over NYCFC. It's kind of interesting that Charlotte actually won both of their meeting against NYCFC, both home and away. But in terms of the top goal scorer, this has been one of the problems for Charlotte this season. They don't really have anybody that can score the goals. In fact, all in terms of their top goal scorer, there's 4 of them that shares with 2 goals with Enzo Capetti, Emil Josiak, Kirill Shvedetsky, Kevin Vargas with 2 goals, and then Ben Bender with 1 goal, and that's about it. I mean, that's all the goal score for Charlotte so far this season. For NYCFC, you got Talos Magno with 3 goals, Santi Rodriguez with 3 goals, Gabriel Pereira with 2 goals, Maxime Chenot with 1 goal, and Thiago Andrade with 1 goal, and a couple of guys also with 1 goal for NYCFC. So yeah, again, this is a big game certainly again for Charlotte FC. They're played at home, and at least in the last home game, they finally got a win, and we'll see whether or not if they can get another one. I mean, they need to have a response after last week. That was just a shambolic performance against DC United. And a performance that, yeah, just continue to bring in the heat of the fan base that are very unhappy in terms of the start of the season that they have. Now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is SC Cincinnati versus DC United. So who would have thought that this would be a matchup that we're now about 1/3 of the season that it should be a bit of an interesting match, because, for Cincinnati, we know that they are still one of the best team in the Eastern Conference, but DC all of a sudden, they have gone on a bit of a hot streak with a 4-2 and 4 record under Wayne Rooney. It feels like they finally found that consistency that they lacked in the beginning of the season, but this is going to be a big test facing against the Cincinnati team. 6-3-1 so far this year. In terms of the all-time meeting, so far it's been pretty much heavily in favor of DC. 4-3-1 is the all-time meeting. Cincinnati has only beaten DC once. In terms of the top goal scorer of this team, yeah, it said something about them having problem in terms of goal scoring when Sergio Santos, of course, is their top goal scorer with 4 goals. And this is nothing against Sergio Santos. I think this season he started to kind of rediscover the fact that he can still be a decent number 9, just like when he was with the Philadelphia Union. But the fact that none of that front three that we saw last season, that was the heart and soul in terms of the goal scoring and assisting department, aren't on this list. Just to tell you that, yeah, they have kind of struggle in that department. But you also got Neil Moreno with 2 goals, Jefferson Mosquera with 2 goals, and then you see the two of the big three, and Brandon Vasquez with 2 goals, and Lucho Acosta with 1 goal. I believe Brenner also has scored 1 goal this season, but again, Brenner has been kind of inactive, knowing the fact that he's been kind of sitting out because of that transfer deals that had been completed a couple of weeks ago, where he's going to be going to Udinese. Though again, it will be a bit before he is going to get himself back to match fitness and be back with this team. Whereas for DC United, Christian Benteke, I mean, it's been a renaissance season for him. 5 goals so far this year, followed by Taxi Funtas that started to heat up a little bit with 2 goals. Then you got Steven Birnbaum, Chris Durkin, and Green with 1 goal for DC United. A lot of DC players, of course, have 1 goal. And as I will mention throughout this video, there are going to be some teams that you're going to see like the top 5 goals scored Being kind of near the fourth or fifth, or just having one goals because we're not deep enough into the season where you can see there is a little bit of a difference. Though I will say that we are kind of deep enough the season where we can kind of have a telling story of whether a team has a reliable goal scored or a team that don't really have a reliable goal scored, in terms of the goals that is being scored. But yeah, it should be an interesting big matchup. And again, for DC, we'll see whether or not if they continue this great run that they had, and if they can get a result against FC Cincinnati. I think Wayne Rooney might have just released this. Our Wayne Rooney team might have just released a statement that this team is definitely for real, and this team can definitely do some good thing in the Eastern Conference and surprise a lot of team. And so far, in terms of the boom and bust kind of season that what we thought DC might have, so far it's been pretty much on the boom part with them really getting themselves off of that slow start and have now got themselves in a playoff position. Now, moving on in terms of the next match, that's kind of what Inter Miami is hoping for too, as they play against Atlanta United. So this should be an interesting matchup because this is supposed to be the Joseph Martinez derby. Although, with the way that Joseph Martinez was an unused sub in the last game, and that it seems like maybe Phil Neville was kind of tired of the fact that Joseph Martinez wasn't putting up the performance, that maybe he has now got bench. And it's hard to believe the fact that heading into this one, there was a lot of anticipation that, we'll see how Joseph Martinez is going to look when he faces against his former team. And there's a chance where he probably won't even get a chance to play against his former team because of the way how poor he's been playing. And also the fact that Leo Campana back from being on the IR and also started heating up after there was the key contributor in last week win to end their losing streak at 6 games. But the record is 3-0-6, while Atlanta 5-3-2. And in terms of the all-time or in terms of the all-time meeting, it's been all tied up at three apiece. 3 wins, 3 draws, and 3 losses for both of these teams. Top goal scored, yeah, Leo Campana with 2 goals. Both of those goals came last week. It's hard to believe that up until that point, Inter Miami didn't have a guy that scored 2+ goal, because after that you got Borglund, Corton, John Kistepin, and Franco Negri, all with 1 goal, and a bunch of guys from this Inter Miami team with 1 goal. For Atlanta United, you got Thiago Mata with 5 goals, followed by Yakin Marquez with 5 goals. Then you got Caleb Wiley with 3 goals, Luis Araujo with 2 goals, and a bunch of guys with 1 goal, starting with Matthew Schultz. So yeah, this is kind of an interesting matchup. Again, Inter Miami, I will say that, when they play at home against Atlanta United, they have actually done very well against Atlanta United. I don't think they actually have lost a single game against Atlanta United when this matchup is played at Drive Pink Stadium. And again, that win that they had against Columbus, that was a much needed win because, things were really unraveling for this team. And, a win can definitely do a lot to the confidence of a team, and we'll see whether or not if Inter Miami can follow that big road win with another win at home against an Atlanta team that, yeah, there's kind of started to cool off a little bit, and especially if Yakimakis is not going to be available in this game, they're going to once again struggle in terms of going forward on the attacking end. Then we move on into the next match, and another team that is kind of on the up and rise, and that, of course, is Montreal. They are playing against Orlando City, and if you had told me that Montreal will only be 2 points below the red line just a couple of weeks ago, I think everyone would have said that I'm absolutely crazy, and even the most optimist Montreal fans might not think they're that close in terms of being below the playoff line, but that's kind of is the case. In fact, there's kind of a bit of a logjam in terms of the last playoff spot and all those teams that is near the bottom of the standings. And I know it sounds maybe crazy to talk about playoffs since we're only 10 games into the season, but this is kind of a fun time to kind of mention the fact that a lot of teams is really out of the playoff pictures yet, especially with the extended playoffs this season. But in this one, they're going to be playing against Orlando City, who's 4-2-3. And in terms of the all-time meeting, pretty tight. Montreal slightly has the edge, 9-3-8 over Orlando City. Top goal scorer for Montreal, well, there's only 4 goals scored for this team. Matthew Chrenier leads the team with 2 goals, Ramil Kyoto with 1 goal, right, Stuke with 1 goal, and Chinilso Ofor with 1 goal. And of those goals that I mentioned, 2 of them, of course, scored last week, and that's Chrenier and Bryce too. This is another team that has had problem in terms of goal scoring. For Orlando City, yeah, Duncan McGuire actually leads the team in terms of goal scoring. I mean, again, we see this every single season where you see a guy that you probably have never heard of it, but he came out of the super draft, but it turns out he could be a bit of a stud, and that's kind of the case with Duncan McGuire. I mean, I don't want to say that they might have found their Dale DK replacement, but it kind of looks like it with the way that Duncan McGuire, again, almost pretty much in the same path as what we see with Daryl DK coming out of the draft and really make himself a name. And next thing you know, Orlando was able to sell him off for a big amount of money. And I'm not sure if that's going to be the same case for McGuire, but it surely looked like it with the way that he's been scoring the goals, and who knew that he was the answer in terms of the a number nine that can score the goals for this Orlando City team. Then you got Angulo with 2 goals, Ojeda with 2 goals, Facu Torres with 2 goals, and Ajan Kara with 1 goal, and I believe that's all the goal scored for Orlando City too. So again, this is another team that is having a little bit of an issue in terms of goal scoring, and I think one of the other big issue for this Orlando City team is consistency. And it's not going to be easy. The fact that, if they want to prove their fans that, yeah, they maybe can actually win 2 games in a row, which, again, it feels like that's a rarity for this Orlando City team. They always follow a pattern where once they get a win and maybe their fans believe that something can turn around, and then the next game they basically fool their fans and suffer a loss. And there could be a possibility this could be type of a game because, like I said, Montreal, I think her and Lasada is starting to figure it out a little bit, and especially they are playing at home this season. They've been pretty good in terms of playing at home, and although Orlando has also been very good on the road this season, again, I just wonder the inconsistency. Is it going to come back again in this one where they suffer a loss, and once again it's more frustration for this Orlando City fan base to deal with because there's just no consistency that this team can show week in and week out. And for Montreal, again, if they can get a win in this one, they are definitely back in the playoff picture to a point where I think they would be closing within just 2 points of Orlando City, who's sitting in a position because of them playing head to head. Now, moving on to the next match is the New York Red Bulls versus the Philadelphia Union. So, if there is one time that the Red Bulls really want to face against the Philadelphia Union, this is definitely the time to do so because again, the Union they are it's going to be tough for them knowing that they just came off of a tough loss in CCL and now they have to go back into league play. Now, um, depending on how you look at it, maybe Jim current team will be kind of glad that they, of course, would face against a Red Bulls team that has been kind of been a disaster this season with a 1-6-3 record, the worst points total in the Eastern Conference right now. Well, the Union 3-2-4, and in terms of the all-time meeting, 15-10-14 in favor of the Union. Top goal scored for the Red Bulls. You got a bunch of guys with 1 goals, with the likes of Manuel, Tom Barlow, Corey Burke, Omer Fernandez, and Lucanias with 1 goal for the New York Red Bulls. For the Philadelphia Union, you got Michael Root with 5 goals, Julian Carranza with 3 goals, Daniel Gastek with 3 goals, Andre Pereira with 1 goal, and Joaquin Torres with 1 goal for the Philadelphia Union. But like I said, for the Union, it's got to be tough to trying to mentally get ready for a game after you just suffer a heartbreak like what we saw in CCL a couple of days ago. And that again, this is why for the Red Bulls, if there is a chance for them to really turn the season around, this has got to be the game to do so. You're playing at home, you get against a Union team that is absolutely battered after what we saw just a couple of days ago, and not to mention, not only battered but on a short rest after that physical CCL game. If the Red Bulls don't capitalize on this, again, I've said this before, but I say it again, I think Gerhard Struber is in serious trouble. I think it would be getting to a time where I won't be surprised if they continued to have these bad results. Struber could potentially find himself out of the job and could be that first head coach to be fired in the league. But moving on, we got the San Jose Earthquakes versus LAFC, and by the way, I know you're probably asking, am I actually attending this game? And the answer, at least in the beginning of the season, was a yes, but I actually did not buy tickets to go to this game. And the reason why is because with the way that this game was at 4:30, which again, it's kind of a weird time for them to have this game in the afternoon. But I just think that with the way that because it's a 4:30 game and I don't get off work until a little after 2:30, and it's an absolute nightmare to get from where I live to Levi Stadium. I probably won't make it in time for the kickoff. And they said that there is expect to be about 40,000 fans that is in attendance for this one. And knowing the fact that security always tends to be slow when I go to Levi Stadium. I mean, I've been volunteering outside of that stadium a couple of times, and let me tell you, during Niners games, it is an absolute nightmare to get in and get out. So I don't have a lot of faith. Even if I get there like just on time around 4 or 4:15, I probably wouldn't even make it in time to get into the stadium. And I definitely want to get in there and don't want to miss part of the kickoff because tickets are also not cheap in terms of going to this game. But that being said, in terms of this matchup, we got the Quakes with a 4-3 in record, while LAFC once again heading into week 11, looking to continue to be the only MLS team to be unbeaten at 5-3-0. As I mentioned, this game is played at Levi Stadium, and in terms of the all-time meeting, LAFC does leads the all-time meeting 8-0-5. But the top goal scored so far for the Quakes, Christian Espinoza, definitely having an MVP type of season with 6 goals. I mean, he just won the Player of the Month in April, so I don't think he's underrated anymore. I think he's definitely in the conversation in terms of MVP this season, followed by Jeremy Ebobisse with 5 goals. Then you got Carlos Acapel with 1 goal, and Jackson Yo, of course, scoring the last game against Austin with 1 goal for this Quakes team. Then you got LAFC, you got Dennis Bawanga, who's probably the leading candidate right now in terms of the MVP race with 7 goals, followed by Carlos Vela with 3 goals, Timothy Tillman with 2 goals, Stefan Buke with 1 goal, and Gio Chiellini with one goals, and a couple more LAFC player with 1 goals for this team. So yeah, again, just like what I said about the Red Bulls with the Philadelphia Union, if there is a time the Quakes will face against an unstoppable force like LAFC, this might be the time to do so. And I know what you're thinking. Why would the Quakes want to face against LAFC after what we saw? Didn't you just say the fact that the Quakes probably have no chance in terms of winning this game? Yeah, I do think that they maybe still have little chance to win this one, even though they are technically playing at home against LAFC in this one. But one thing I will say, like what I said about the Philadelphia Union, it's a short week for them, and that after you just have such a high that what we saw from LAFC in the game against the Union, whether or not we're going to see a letdown now that they're back in league play, and especially again that game with them facing against the Union, it was a very physical game, and that toll is going to take a team, especially when you have a short rest period, and for LAFC again, a short week to prepare for this game, and the Quakes are going to be up for this one, and especially in front of 40,000 plus fans, which I won't be surprised about a quarter of them or even half of them will be supporting LAFC in this one. Yeah, the Quakes are wants to win it. Also because of the fact that it is against LA, the Quakes are going to be really up for it. And I have seen before where when they do play against LAFC at home, even though you would think that it might be an impossible task to start a decent LAFC team, they have been able to do so. And that, yeah, don't be surprised this could be an upset, even though I've said before that Quakes can't pull this off. This probably might be the biggest upset we've seen this week. Moving on. We got Toronto versus the New England Revolution. That wraps up the 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific game that I talked about in this preview. TFC, of course, getting their second win of the season with a 2-6-2 record, while New England still at the top of the Eastern Conference with 6-3-1 record. All-time meeting 14-13-10 in favor of the Revs. In terms of the top goal scorer for TFC, you got Bernadeschi still leads the team with 3 goals, followed by Mark Anthony Kay and Richie Lorea with 2 goals, and then you got couple of players with 1 goals, with the likes of Michael Bradley and Lorenzo Insigne. For New England, Veroni, of course, leads the team with 3 goals, followed by Barrero with 2 goals. Though again, that's probably the mark that he'll be sitting for this season because he, of course, have suffered a torn ACL, and I mentioned that's a huge blow for this New England Revolution team. Then you got Gustavo Bo with 2 goals, Carlos Hill with 2 goals, and Bobby Wood also with 2 goals. Now, what's interesting about this matchup is that this is a battle between two of the most prestige head coach in the league, and no doubt two head coach that is going to go down as the one of the most legendary head coach to ever coach in this league, in Bob Bradley and Bruce Arena. So it's going to be interesting to see how this, of course, would turn out, but especially the fact that New England again. I would say that now they are starting to get to a part of the schedule where things are going to be tougher. I mean, again, this is what happened when you do play a lot of easy opponent. Your schedule is going to get tougher, and against a TFC side that, although they're just barely above the red line in ninth place right now, this team has proved that they are a tough team to beat, and it's not going to be easy for the Revs to go on the road to face against the TFC side fresh off of a win. But moving on into the last match on this board is FC Dallas versus St. Louis City. So this is the first of three games that's going to be starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific for Dallas, 4-3 and 3, while St. Louis is 6-1 and 3. This, of course, is the first ever meeting between both of these teams. And for Dallas, top goal scored, unsurprisingly, Jesus Ferreira leads the team with 5 goals, followed by Alan Velasco with 2 goals. Then you got Tafari with 1 goal, Ibiaga with 1 goal, and Komodo and a couple of FC Dallas player with 1 goal for this team. For St. Louis, Joe Kloss leads the team with 5 goals, followed by Giacchini with 3 goals. They got Jared Stroud also with 3 goals, Rasmus with 2 goals, and Kyle Hebert rounds up the top 5 with 2 goals for this St. Louis City side. So, yeah, this is kind of an interesting matchup, and especially against St. Louis, kind of hitting a little bit of a rough patch in these last couple of games. I mean, ever since the amazing 5-0-0 start, they have only won 1 game since that. So yeah, teams are starting to figure them out a little bit, but I do, as I mentioned before, I do trust that Bradley Carnell will find a ways to combat that. Though it's not going to be easy because against a Dallas team that so far home form has been pretty good. This team has done very well at home, and it's not going to be easy for St. Louis to go on the road. Though again, they have proven that they have able to go on the road and get wins on the road even in hostile environment, and we'll see whether or not if that is going to be the case, because again, not a lot of team is able to go to Dallas this season and able to walk away with all 3 points. With that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 6 games that finish off match week number 11. So moving on, in the next match, we got the Houston Dynamo versus RSL. So for the Dynamo, back at home again in this match, which you would think that means it's a win for them, because right now they are perfect at home. In fact, they're the only team to be having a perfect record at home so far this season with a 4-0 and 0 record. And all 4 of those wins that they had so far this season has come at home. 4-1 and 3, facing against an RSL team that is 3-1 and 5. And in terms of the all-time meeting, RSL does slightly leads the all-time meeting with 13-10 and 12 record over Houston. Top goal scorer for the Dynamo, Bassi currently leads the team with 5 goals, followed by Hector Herrera with 2 goals. Then you got Coco Carrasquilla, Tate Schmidt, and Daniel Steritz with 1 goal for this Dynamo team. For RSL, Jefferson Savarino with 3 goals, followed by Justin Glad with 2 goals. Then you got a couple of guys with 1 goals for RSL, guys like Gomez, Julio, and Demir Kryalek with 1 goal for this RSL team. So yeah, this should be an interesting kind of matchup, and especially again, the Dynamo, they have been so good this season at home. We'll see whether or not if they can get another their home wins against a team that this season like RSL, that besides that 1 win that they have on the road against the Vancouver Whitecaps to open their season, they have not done well whatsoever on the road, and that's kind of been the case when we see about this RSL team. They're never really a good road team under Pablo Mastroeni. So yeah, the Dynamo will be definitely hoping that will continue as they looking to try to get another 3 points and stay perfect at home this season. Moving on, we got Nashville versus the Chicago Fire. So Nashville 4-3 and 3, while the Chicago Fire, amazingly, they are 2-5 and 2, even though technically they should be better than what their record is, especially with me kind of mentioning every single week they always find ways to not get another win in their winning column. But in terms of the all-time meeting, this is only the 4th meeting between both of these teams. Nashville has the only win, and there's been 2 draws in this all-time meeting. For Nashville, unsurprisingly, top goal scored is Hani Mukhtar with 3 goals, but you also got Jacob Schaffelberg tied with 3 goals, followed by Fafa Pico, Teal Bunbury, and Taylor Washington. For Chicago, Kai Kamara again continue to defeat Father Time of just being a red hot goal scored for this Fire team with 4 goals. Then you got Chris Mueller with 2 goals, Kasper Shabilko with 2 goals, Rafael Shihos with 1 goal, and Marlon Halesalisi with 1 goal for the Chicago Fire team. So yeah, again, this is a game where, we'll see whether or not if the Chicago Fire finally break that habit of finding ways to lose games, because, I mean, if they do it again this week, I'm not even going to be surprised because I think it's getting to a point where if they do it this week, I think Fire fans aren't even going to be upset or heartbreak about it. Like there's a given time where you have seen this so many times that kind of heartbreak just kind of been getting used to, and it's almost kind of like a numbing feeling, and that's not a great feeling when your team can't able to get resort and keep blowing leads, and it's not easy the fact that they might have to they might have a chance to do it again, especially against a good team like Nashville SC, who this season they have been much better at home, and I think that's the key thing for this Nashville team. I mean, last season the struggle at Geodis Park was definitely real, but this season it's been the complete opposite, and it's no surprise that they are one of the better team in the Eastern Conference because of it. I mean, we know that this is a good road team, but if they can get their home form going, which they have done this season, it's no surprise that they are definitely one of the top teams, and maybe have a small shout that they could be a challenger in the Eastern Conference playoffs once we get there. I mean, we're still a long way to go in terms of using the word playoffs, but Nashville has played really good soccer at least in the beginning of the season. Then we go to the very next match, which again, I think you could say that this is a desperation derby between the LA Galaxy versus the Colorado Rapids. I mean, mostly, I would say it's a desperation derby because both teams really need to get on the win column. I mean, the Galaxy they did finally get a win against Austin, but I mean, the last game was just a complete smack back to reality with them losing that one, and now they have a record of 1-3-5. While the Colorado Rapids, yeah, they're kind of becoming like the Toronto FC and the New York Red Bulls, drawing way too many games with a 1-6-3 record. And there's actually is going to be the first of 3 games that's going to start at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. And it's somewhat kind of maybe glad that the Quakes and LAFC game is not at that time, because if that's the case, that's 4 games that's going to be happening at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. I'm pretty sure that's a lot of late games, especially for those that is trying to keep track of every single game if you're watching this in the East Coast. But in terms of their all-time meeting, 45, 12, and 33 in favor of the Galaxy. And so far for the Galaxy, they still don't have a two-goal scored. I mean, guys like Tyler Boyd, Marky Delgado, Chicharito, Dejan Joveljic, and Kevin Laerdam are the notable goal scorers so far for the Galaxy with 1 goal. For the Colorado Rapids, surprisingly, they actually have a two goal scored. Michael Barrios actually have 2 goals, and I say surprisingly because this team has really struggled in terms of scoring goals too. They also have Max on target with 1 goal, Cole Bassett with 1 goal, Kevin Cabral with 1 goal, and Diego Rubio with 1 goal. Imagine if Kevin Cabral scored a goal against the Rapids in this game against the Galaxy. You know how Galaxy fans would be so pissed off that of course is gonna happen. And just me saying that, I feel like it probably could happen, especially if that indeed is gonna be the game winner. Like that would be the ultimate meme kind of thing that we'll see if that actually does happen. But one thing for sure that both of these teams are looking to have happen in this one is get wins. Again, wins has kind of come hard to come by. I mean, for the Galaxy again, that win that they have against Austin, we'll see whether or not if that of course sparks something good. But then they followed that with a loss last week, so we'll see. Whether if they improve, and again for the Colorado Rapids, they have definitely been much more improved in the beginning of the season. But again, the problem still lies in terms of so they just don't have a lot of game changing goal score that can get them the wins, and that's going to be something that Robin Fraser is really hoping to solve, because otherwise they're going to draw a lot more games like what they have this season, and they're probably not going to be a team that they're going to be a team that at least have solved the issue in the beginning of the season, but really hasn't solved the ultimate issue, which is this team we knew coming into the season goal scoring was going to be a huge challenge for this team. Then we move on to the next one between the Portland Timbers versus Austin FC. So this is a matchup between a team that definitely has been helped by the injection of the Cascadia Derby win. I mean, who would have saw that one coming with a 3-2-5 record versus an Austin FC team that is still winless. But the last game against the Quakes, there may be some encouragement for Austin fans that things could maybe start to turn around. Maybe, though again, it's not easy that they have to play against the Timbers on the road in this one. In terms of the all-time meeting, the Timbers still have that slight lead with a 3-0-2 record over Austin FC. In terms of the top goal scorer, Darren Aspira, Evander, and Mosquera with 2 goals, followed by Bowley and Jimmy Chara with 1 goal. For Austin FC, it's still John Gallagher that leads the team with 3 goals. But Sebastian Driussi did score in the last game to get his tally to 2 goals. And then, of course, one thing that we finally saw last week that probably should have happened sooner, but it finally happened, seeing Rigoni on the score sheet with 1 goal, followed by Maxi Urruti and Owen Move. And I believe that's actually the amount of goals that Austin FC has scored with a combined of all 5 of those players. So yeah, again, this is going to be a tough game again for Austin if they can build on what they did last week. Because again, with this Timber side, I do believe that they're starting to carry that momentum that we expect that the Cascadia Derby will get, and I'm pretty sure that the Timbers would want to once again face against the Seattle Sounders in the near future. Because if they can win that one, too, then all of a sudden, yeah, they would feel like, well, like, all those injury issue that we've been dealing with. We can power through it because we're still winning, and we finally started to find ourselves in the right foot after off to just such a disastrous start to the season. Now, moving on, we got the Vancouver Whitecaps versus Minnesota. So, this is a game between the Whitecaps that, just like I mentioned before, with the Colorado Rapids, a team that's kind of been very frustrating to watch because they have played good soccer at times, but they aren't getting the result with a 2-5-2 record, and they face against a Minnesota team that has been very frustrating to watch too. In fact, if you ask me, this is probably the infuriating derby, if that's kind of another name that I use. I mean, I know it's these derby names are kind of started getting out of hand, but again, that's you could say the same thing about MLS trying to manufacture a rivalry and just simply call this a rivalry just because two teams are really good for their respective conference. But yeah, this is a game between two fan bases are probably very infuriating watching their team. As I mentioned, the Whitecaps, they play good soccer, but they just cannot get that vital win. And then the Loons, a team that, it's hard to believe that, they're not really in a goal drought at a rate where we see some teams have gone like 300 plus minutes without a goal, but it kind of feels like it with last week's performance against FC Dallas, with a free record, and a team that yet to score a goal in the last 2 games. Now, in terms of the all-time meeting, 5-4-3 in favor of Minnesota. Top goal scored for Vancouver. You got Simon Betcher with 3 goals, followed by a couple of guys with 1 goal. The likes of Brian White, Ahmad, Tristan Blackman, and also Javane Brown with 1 goal. For Minnesota, you got Luis Amarilla and Mender Garcia and Bongi Longwane with 2 goals, followed by Kevin Arriaga and Miguel Tapias, and I believe that's the only amount of goal scores that Minnesota has had this season. Again, there's another team that struggled to score goals, but it's not because of a lack of trying. It's just because they just couldn't finish, and we'll see whether if they can do so in this one. I mean, so far this year, they've been pretty good on the road, and especially they were able to get a road win in the last game. So I'm assuming this maybe could be the case, but again, the other thing that is kind of alarming with this Loons team is that ever since that good start that they had to the beginning of the season, they've gone winless in the last four games. So yeah, it's about finally getting back on the winning form, and especially it's about time for them to finally score a goal too, because you do not want to get to a point where this team goes 3 games without a goal, and that's when I'm starting to really get nervous about the fact that, yeah, it seems like they're probably starting to find themselves in a similar situation with Sporting KC, and that that defense that has been just sensational this season can only carry you so far if you're not putting the ball in the back of the net. But moving on into the last game on this board, we got the Seattle Sounders versus Sporting KC. So this, of course, is the only game that is going to be happening on Sunday. And again, these national televised games, it's been I just feel like the way that MLS has picked these national televised game isn't really just because of the fact that there's going to be a good matchup, but it's more like, hey, let's go to Seattle again, because I feel like when you look at this season and for the past couple of seasons, a lot of these national televised games are always at places that maybe have good fan base, and going to Seattle is definitely not a bad place, and even going to Portland, that they did a lot, and especially going to the two LA team that is also the same case. But again, I just feel like they could have been a little bit more better in terms of choosing games, and especially not every time you have to basically have a national televised games involving the Seattle Sounders, and this is kind of the case. Though I will say to defense in terms of the schedule maker, they didn't think that Sporting KC would have a historic bad start to the season and are still the first the only team that is looking for their first win of the season with an 0-3-7 record, while Seattle 6-2-2. This game, of course, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, and it's going to be on Big Fox. All-time meeting 13-5-10 in favor of Sporting KC. And in terms of the top goal scorer, well, Jordan Morris leads the team with 8 goals, and that is definitely not a player that Sporting KC fans want to see, and unfortunately they probably have to see, because that's the guy that scored half of their goals against their team last time both of these teams face off earlier this year. Then you got Aber with 2 goals, Raul Ruiz with 2 goals, Leo Chu with 1 goal, and Jos Atencio with 1 goal. For Sporting KC, yeah, I mean, only 3 goals still so far this season. Those 3 goals scored are William Agada, Johnny Russo, and Daniel Shaarawy. And that, yeah, again, I mentioned before about Sporting KC and when exactly this winless run is going to come to an end. This probably won't be the game. I mean, especially I'm pretty sure Seattle are still probably a little pissed off. Well, I feel like they kind of already took their rage, and especially Jordan Morris must have took the rage of not being on the national team, and also Seattle in general took the rage of the fact that, yeah, they got eliminated for the first time in their franchise history from the playoffs in the hands of Sporting KC that they took on them. I don't know if that's going to be the same feeling for Seattle when they play against Sporting KC, but if there is one thing I will say about the Sounders is that, should be a team that they should win, and they definitely don't want to be that team to hand the first win for Sporting KC. So, yeah, again, this should be an easy victory, but again, we have seen some crazy thing that has happened, and that maybe if you're a Sporting KC, I mean, the only thing you're hoping is that you see one of those kind of peak MLS moment where somehow a winless teams can be one of the best team in the Western Conference. I mean, it has happened, but again, it unless if that does happen, it is very unlikely that Sporting KC is going to get something out of this game, especially when they have to go on the road against a Seattle team that I don't think Seattle has conceded a single goal this season at home. Yeah, that's also not going to help the problem in terms of Sporting KC, a team that is the definition of a team that is struggling to score goals, with them only scoring 3 so far in their first 10 games. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the preview of all 14 of these games. As always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all 14 of these games, and let me know in the comments below also your prediction for all 14 of these games as part of match week number 11. But till then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.